The Polestar 3 is Polestar's brand new crossover here, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of efficiency you can expect and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And so as far as the styling on the Polestar, well, it is very bold here for the Polestar 3. So there's some really interesting design touches. I think the thing that impresses me about this design overall is that the theme is very agile and very lean. So you can see that, you know, partially thanks to the black cladding, but also just the narrowness of the body. It almost looks like a lifted wagon more so than it looks like a bulky SUV, especially in the back there. You can really see it's, you know, a skinny little rear window and just looks, you know, really, really cool. It also has 8.3 inches of ground clearance. So, you know, because it doesn't have all this mass down low, you have, you know, some pretty good ground clearance as well. But up front there, you can see you have some really cool headlights there. I really like that design, kind of almost mirrors the design of the Polestar logo. I also love how this hood goes down and does this aero bridge kind of thing that we've only seen on the Dodge Charger EV. Otherwise, these are the only two I think that have that kind of a trick here, and I love it. I think it's a really cool look and a way to kind of change up the front end while still getting really top-notch aerodynamics out of this thing. You also see that very advanced sensor bar there in the front bumper that also will have the LiDAR sensor, so this will eventually be able to do hands-free driving. It doesn't do that just yet. This one also has these 22-inch wheels here, which are an option. They do cost extra, but man, they also very much make a statement here on this thing. But because this has an air suspension, the ride is actually really good, as I'll show when we hit out on the road there. But these wheels also, yeah, very much make a statement. You also get standard Brembo brakes, which are massive and nicely painted in gold here as a Polestar touch there, you know, but really, you know, nicely shows off those brakes with these wheels. And then coming down to the sides here, you have the flush door handles, which I don't love. So I will briefly say that the way this vehicle is set up, you have a card as a key, and you can see there's a little touch panel there you think would be used to maybe lock the vehicle, but instead you have to take out this card key and put it on that handle in order to get it to open up and close. Now you can also use phone as a key. I think that's probably the best way, because I think that hopefully will be a little more seamless than this card arrangement, but there is no key fob with this vehicle, so you have to dig your, you know, hand in your pocket, pull out this card and always put it up against the door if you don't want to use your phone or if you want to have the key as a backup here. But anyway, aside from that, you know, really cool on the sides there. Now going out to the back end, again, very slender taillights, slender rear window there, a really cool look. And so yeah, from every single angle, I think this thing just actually looks really cool. All right, so for the interior of the Polestar 3, it's interesting. There's some really cool aspects to it. There's some really annoying aspects to it. And so I'll cover all that here in this video. But first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these very nice Napa leather seats. Now this is part of this Plus package, which is $5,500. That enables these seats to also be massaging seats and also be ventilated seats. And it's a very nice massage. It gets really vigorous if you wanted to, and really is a really cool massage. It has a bunch of different functions to it, and really like that a lot. Ventilation works really well here, and just so soft and comfortable too. I love all the adjustments. You can adjust the bolstering, you can adjust the thigh support here, of course all the usual adjustments. Just such nice seats. They also even have speakers in the headrest here, which I'll get into the system for the stereo here in a minute, but you also even have the details of the sourcing of the Napa leather there on the seat, which is a funny little, you know, like nerdy aspect there, but I think it kind of goes with the very scientific kind of feel I guess they're going for with this vehicle. But great seats. The steering wheel here is also very interesting. So it has, first off, the basics are great. A fantastic 9-3 grip, really cool little 10-2 notches, a little flat bottom, a really great feeling wheel, except it looks like there's no buttons on it, which is strange for 2025. Now you do have these two little rocker switch zone kind of things that are capacitive touch. They're never labeled. You basically just hover your finger over them and it'll show you on the gauge cluster what they do, but they only do a couple little things. And I mean, it makes it very clean and it's a nice aesthetic, but not sure if people are going to love that or hate that. But moving on to that little gauge cluster there, it's a 9-inch cluster, and it's actually really nice and crisp with the graphics, and you know, just has a few different views to go through there for for it, but I just like that we have a gauge cluster because a lot of vehicles these days are trying to get rid of it. And so I'm really happy we have that here, and it gives you all the great info you're looking for, like your battery percentage there, your range. You also have a nice large head-up display here, and so, you know, having a gauge cluster is great, but also having that redundancy right up there in front of you is also really nice. And then you also see these little stalks on the column here. And so the right one, in addition to being your gear selector, is how you turn on cruise control. And that's a little bit of an interesting choice there. I'll talk more about once we're out on the highway. And then on the left here, again, even like the windshield wipers are very simple with the light controls there. And, you know, again, not for everyone with the simplicity here. I think it's a little overboard personally, but it's something I think, you know, most people can get used to. Coming over to the middle here, you have a 14.5-inch touchscreen, and that's pretty much it. Now, thankfully, it's a really nice touchscreen. It's running the Android Automotive operating system, and that means it has Google built in. So you have Google Assistant, you have Google Maps, you have, you know, the Google Play Store, so you can run stuff natively, and it's all, you know, pretty good. You can, you know, download whatever apps you want into it if you want to run those. But crucially, it has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Thank you. This is something that, you know, Rivian refuses to do. This is something Tesla, of course, refuses to do, and even GM these days. The fact that Polestar has that is huge, and I'm just so happy that they're not trying to exclude, you know, iPhone users here with this, or forcing you to go back 10 years with your connectivity to your phone. We have Apple CarPlay, and it's also a fantastic CarPlay display. It is huge, and I mean, it takes up almost the entire screen. Thankfully, still does have the climate control, you know, row there ever present. But, you know, really a nice integration of that as well. Also going through satellite radio is nice and easy. Very logically arranged menus for that. Pulling up your camera is very easy, and all of your most recently used stuff is in this bottom row. That's kind of similar to like what Ford does, and I really like that actually, because anything you're using frequently is going to be always right there. And it's, you know, just really well done. The only odd quirk is, in this one, I guess this vehicle might have some glitches in it still, because for some reason the climate control, it lets me do auto, but everything else is grayed out. I have no clue why it's not letting me change anything else here, and thankfully we can change, you know, the actual temperature, but everything else is completely locked in this thing for some reason. So that is cool though. It shows you your air quality, and, you know, it also gives you the option to leave it on while parked, which is nice. But yeah, there's still some glitches to be worked out. You also see what I'm going through here, that it actually is showing me there's an electrical fault with this vehicle. Not sure what that's about. It just popped up here during my driving today. So again, this also has a software update pending. Maybe that'll fix some of this stuff. You know, thankfully this is capable of over-the-air updates, so all this stuff will hopefully get improved, you know, over time. But still seems a little buggy, at least for this one in particular. This is, I think, a very early production one. This one says it was built in China. I'm not sure how it ended up over here being an EV. Yeah, they're now built in South Carolina, so you won't have, you know, the same maybe build quality. We'll see. I don't know, you know, if the software is different or what. But anyway, just, yeah, a really good infotainment system, and with some little fixes there, I think it'll be great. Moving on here, you have this wireless phone charger that is also the place for your key, which I'll talk about the key in a second when we turn it on. But you also just have a really nice volume knob here with a little play and pause button that's cool, and your two cup holders here. Now you also have this massive area under here, which is really cool, and you also have two USB-C jacks in this little spot that has this little Velcro. I'm not sure, honestly, what this does here, or a little bit of stretchy elastic, I guess I should say. I guess that's for holding in cables or something. I'm not sure, but you know, a good amount of space there. You also have nice large pockets in the doors, and also a center armrest. And it's really nice and softly padded, and has a nice deep cubby in there. But the last, and arguably one of the best things about this interior up front especially, is that you have this Bowers & Wilkins stereo. And this stereo is really top notch. It's 25 speakers, 1,610 watts, and it has Dolby Atmos, surround sound. And it's just very, very impressive. Now, it didn't look like there was a bunch of ways to customize the surround effect or anything. And, you know, I will say one of the other competitors that also has a very impressive stereo, that also has headrest speakers and all that, is the Audi SQ6 or Q6 e-trons. Those, I think, actually have a slightly better sounding stereo in my opinion. It's a Bang & Olufsen in that one. They're all very good though. It's amazing the advancement in stereo quality in the past, you know, even 5 or 10 years. It's so, so good here. Very impressive, and I love all the metal speaker grills you have here. But while we're looking at the door and the metal speaker grills there, you will also see one final thing is the window switches. I usually don't talk about window switches, but this vehicle only has 2 of them. And you have to press this button in order to control the rear ones and switch back and forth. And there's some low price vehicles like the Volvo EX30 where they do the same kind of thing, and Volkswagen does it with the ID4. In lower cost stuff, it still is a stretch to justify, but okay, maybe. This vehicle as tested is like $90,000. There should be no cost cutting whatsoever. Absolutely unacceptable to skimp on 2 window switches in a vehicle this expensive. I don't understand how that ever was approved. That's just ridiculous. So that's one of the major downfalls here of this vehicle. But anyway, moving on to the back seat here in the Polestar 3, you have a huge amount of space. They did such a good job, and this is an area where I think it actually is better than, I think, basically all the competition. Maybe the Cadillac Lyriq has an equal amount of space, but other than that one, I mean, this is top of the class here. A huge amount of legroom, nice flat floor there, lots of headroom. You have this huge panoramic glass roof, which unfortunately does not have a cover on it. So that's something. The Lyriq, for example, does give you a cover, but you know, stuff like the Teslas don't have one either. So Polestar's not alone in this, but you know, I thought we were kind of evolving beyond this and, you know, starting to get some, you know, covers in some of the other vehicles, or at least have it tinted in a way where you can have like the opaque or the, you know, kind of frosted look. And this doesn't seem to have any of that. So it's tinted, but other than that, you know, you're going to have yourself being blasted with the sunshine every single day. And so, yeah, another interesting choice there. But they are very comfortable seats back there. They also have their own air vents and power outlets. There's a nice large fold-down center armrest with 2 pop-out cup holders and pockets in those doors as well. Cargo space here in the Polestar is also very good. So, you know, it's pretty typical for this segment. A nice long space, nice and wide. You open up the cover there beneath the floor, and you'll see some extra little space there too. And, you know, I think it's going to be right in line with most of the others. I think this is, again, a little less tall than some of the competition. So by cubic feet, when you're measuring, you know, all the way up to the ceiling, this might lose out compared to some of the others. If you stack things frequently, this might not be the best choice. But I think as far as all the usual length and width stuff, it's going to be, you know, mostly the same as most of the others out there. So overall, you know, pretty well done in my opinion. But let's turn it on and go for a drive. So apologies in advance for this rant, but this is the key card. Like I explained whenever we were on the outside, you know, you have to always put it up against the door in order to get access. Now, I'm assuming everyone's just going to use Photos Key if you're owning one of these. But it still would be nice for them to give you a fob, because, you know, having to lug this little thing, I mean, this is not, you know, thin. I mean, maybe the key card part you could take out or something, but, you know, having to have this as a backup is kind of a pain, and relying on your phone, you know, especially in cars that can have glitches and stuff, I don't love that either. I think a fob is still the best way. Most competitors still do offer a fob. I know the fobless trend is starting to slowly gain traction for whatever reason. But, you know, in addition to being annoying getting in and out of this vehicle, every time you want to start this with the key card, you got to put it on your wireless charger here, which means you can't use the wireless charger. Maybe you can remove this while you're driving and it's not going to like stop the car or anything, but you have to always leave it there generally. And every time you get in here, you know, I felt like, again, I was back in 10 years ago when I didn't have keyless entry and I had to pull my you know, key out of my pocket to unlock the doors and, you know, start the vehicle here, and you're right back at square one. Again, hopefully Phonos Key works flawlessly every time. I know in Rivian, for example, it didn't. You know, so it's just a pain. So your mileage will vary. Maybe some people will be completely fine with this. Maybe the app's amazing. I didn't have access to the app here this week, so I can't say for myself, but just, yeah, don't love that at all. And yeah, it'd be nice if they offered a fob, but it sounds like even Volvo for EX90 and stuff doesn't come with a fob anymore, so it sounds like Volvo and Polestar are trying to ditch fobs, and I wish they would just option it. Like, at least even make people pay $500 extra for a fob. I'd pay $500 for the ease of use of having a fob that I know is always going to work every time, and not the bother of digging into my pockets every day. So anyway, that's that. But anyway, you rest that on the middle there, you put your foot on the brake and put it in gear, and you're off and away. All right, so setting off here in the Polestar 3. So the first thing you notice about it, I think the first thing that I'm noticing is actually the really nice light steering. Now, you can adjust the steering. You can also adjust the power delivery, the suspension feel. You also can do a one-pedal drive. All that's here right in these settings. Unfortunately, it's buried into a sub-menu. I don't love that. There's no quick access to that. But anyway, the steering is so light, and it makes this vehicle feel very easy to drive and also very eager to turn and change direction. So it actually feels sporty to me, but it's just really nice to have a light effort here, and it's still very precise and just feels really good. I also love the throttle response. That really jumps out to me as well. It is really eager. I mean, there's a little bit of a dead zone kind of built in before it really starts to go hard, but I mean, you know, it doesn't take much, and then it really kind of piles on the power pretty quickly. It's very easy to be smooth with and all that, but it just feels, again, very eager, and this whole vehicle just feels like it wants to go, like it wants to drive, and it's you know, not needing to be poked in order to, you know, get it to go faster. It really it's just really nice. You also have an air suspension here, and it's been so smooth. On these 22-inch wheels, you'd be like, there is no chance that that's a smooth ride. It is. It's just, they do fantastic work here with the air suspensions at Volvo and Polestar, and so it's just actually really nicely done. Brakes also feel nice and natural and normal, really good as far as the regen and all that. Now there is, again, the one pedal mode if you want to have that, but I just have it off, and I just like using the brake pedal normally, and even in that, it's really good and still does do some regenning there whenever I get onto the brakes. Other things here to notice. Well, it's really nice and quiet in here. We do have active noise cancellation whenever you go to this Plus pack and get this Bowers & Wilkins stereo. That is one of the features of it. But this vehicle in general feels very luxurious, you know, and feels worthy of its price tag. This one of about $90,000, except for the fact there is a low frequency rattle right by this speaker in the ceiling. Just a little quirk of this one, I'm sure, but just make sure that your Polestar is rattle free when you test drive it before you take it home, because that's been kind of annoying. But otherwise, I mean, obviously being electric, it's so silent, so quiet in here. You also have really good visibility, you know, a pretty nice large windshield, pretty thin A-pillars, pretty good view out of the sides. View out of the back is actually better than you might expect for that small window. It actually seems totally fine to me. It's surprising we don't have a camera rear view mirror here in a vehicle this high tech and this expensive, but just a regular mirror here, but you know, still should be totally fine. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put the ESC into its sport mode, and that's also going to put the power delivery into its sport mode. I'm going to put the steering feel up to firm, and also the suspension up to firm here, to, again, just get everything as sporty as possible. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how the Polestar accelerates. Here we go. Flings the key, and it's making a little whirring sound there from those electric motors you can actually hear. But it's really nice and punchy. I think the initial jump is more impressive to me actually than the rest of the acceleration. I mean, it still does pull really nice and hard up to higher speeds there. It's super quick, and I think Polestar underrates this thing, or at least underrates the 0 to 60, because this is rated 483 horsepower, 620 pound-feet of torque, and that's a lot of torque. But they only claim like about I think they say a 4.8 seconds 0 to 60. I know for the performance version, which is a little faster here, it does about 510 horsepower and 671 pound-feet of torque, which is a few $1,000s extra for that performance variant. But Car and Driver got that at like a 3.9 seconds 0 to 60, and I think those are only rated at 4.5 seconds by Polestar. So I'd say this is low 4 seconds, and that feels about right to me as well. Also, you know, the throttle response is a little quicker, but honestly, it's not quite as jumpy as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, and the firmer steering and the firmer ride quality here, so far seem completely fine. And again, they didn't go overboard with any of this stuff. So yes, it is a little bit firmer, but you could drive it like this all day, every day, and this isn't overkill in any way, in my opinion. But we're coming up some corners here that I always take, and let's see how the Polestar handles. So this thing does weigh about 5,700 pounds, and you know, we do have adaptive dampers, and again, we do have we do have again the air suspension, which again is in its firmer setting, but also we have a true torque vectoring rear diff that actually overdrives the wheels, and that's rare. Even a lot of stuff in this segment is still just using brake-based torque vectoring. This actually will overdrive, and so when you corner exit, it really wants to rotate, and that back end almost feels like it wants to you know, go into a slide. It's very secure, and it didn't even light up traction control or anything there, but it just rotates so well, and I think it rotates honestly better than anything else that doesn't have four-wheel steer that I've experienced in this segment. And four-wheel steer, to get that, you got to go up to like a Macan electric, and one of those with that is going to be well over like 110. So this is, I would say, I'm comfortable saying I think this is probably the best handling, you know, at this price point. It's really good. I think it's even a little bit better than the Audi SQ6 e-tron that I recently drove and did a review on, and better than regular Cadillac Lyriq and all that. But we will see. Cadillac Lyriq, it does have a V version coming. It's going to be even sportier, and that could potentially, you know, one up this. But for now, this is definitely, and honestly, not even just on that little back road there, but all week I've been really appreciating just how this thing handles. It is so impressive. Another power here. That time, it actually spun the tire for a split second there. Man, yeah, this thing is... Yeah, and honestly, you know, this isn't the performance version, which is also hilarious. So that gives you even more performance. That also will give you a stiffer suspension setup, a little bit of a sportier tune to all that. And, you know, but I don't think you need it. I mean, because again, this is still so fast. You still have the, you know, adjustable bolstering here, so the seats are hugging me in nice and tight. And it just feels so sporty already that, like, yeah, it drives really well. And I love, again, steering. Again, even in this firmer mode, it's so direct, and I don't know, I can't, it's almost like a secret sauce. I can't really put my finger on exactly why this feels better. It just does. Again, it just feels more eager. It feels more athletic, and doesn't feel like it's managing the weight like so many others. This does not feel, even on turn in there, it does not feel like it's as heavy as it is. Not even close. It's really impressive, the handling magic they did with this. I'm sure the 22-inch wheels also give you a little bit of a sportier handling characteristic. I'm sure if you went to, you know, some of the smaller wheels, you might have a little bit more squirm and a little less precision. But yeah, this thing is, it's so dynamic. And if you're debating whether you need to spend the money, the extra money for the performance variant, I mean, I haven't driven it, so I can't say, but for, you know, a family crossover that's, you know, dynamic, I don't see any reason to need more power or any more handling poise. This is just got it in spades. And slowing all that power down, we also have standard Brembo brakes here, 15.7-inch rotors in the front and 15.4-inch rotors in the rear. And that again is, again, Brembo brakes on the regular long range one is another thing that makes you question, you know, do you actually need the performance variant of this? You know, I really don't think you do, because these brakes are so stout, feel nice and strong, and really well done. I really love daily driving this vehicle all week. I've put well over 100 miles on it here, just doing my errands and stuff locally, and yeah, I just love living with this thing, honestly. Again, there's some quirks, like I mentioned. The key is a huge pain. You know, if they can work out all the little bugs here, and if they add a key fob, I would say this is really one of my favorites in this segment. Now, as far as the battery specs here, we have a 107 kilowatt usable battery pack. It's 111 for the gross capacity there. And so that's going to give you 315 miles of range here in the long range versions. And that's really impressive, again, especially on these big wheels, to have that much range. Usually when you go big wheel size, you know, it really hurts through range here. Now, you can get even higher range if you go for the base trim here, or again, I'm sure smaller wheels probably will help you a little bit too. But you know, that's really actually better range than basically everybody else in this segment too, which, you know, is another feather in the cap here of the Polestar. Now, as far as recharge speeds, that's also very good. So this is able to charge at 250 kilowatts, and so they say a 10% to 80% charge takes about a half an hour. And so that's not the fastest in this segment. You know, I believe the Porsche does do a quicker speed, as do maybe one or two others, but this is towards the top of the pack currently as far as that charge speed as well. So very good with that too. And yeah, just everything about this thing is just really impressive as far as all the mechanicals go. And now we're out on the highway here in the Polestar 3, and I'm going to put on the adaptive cruise system, or try to here. So I believe it's just one tap down, and yeah, that turns on the pilot assist system, and then it's telling me that I can go through here and change it with the left steering wheel thing. It also gives me a nice display here whenever I, you know, switch the steering or the gauge cluster over to the assist setting here. It shows me exactly what it's doing here, and yeah, it's pretty good. So as standard, all Polestar 3s are going to be getting the adaptive cruise control system, blind spot monitoring, all the basic stuff that you've come to expect in a modern vehicle. All that is standard. Now, for this launch edition, it comes with the Pilot Assist pack, or the Pilot Plus pack, and that package gives you the head-up display, and it also gives you lane centering for the Pilot Assist version of Adaptive Cruise, so a little bit more, versus it just does like lane departure alert, and it also just does like a lane keep assist. but it's more of a corrective thing in the base system. Upgrading to this is actually where it kind of tries to do the steering for you. Again, it is not hands-free yet. Eventually these will have that, but for now you still have to keep your hands on the wheel here. And you know, it's doing a really good job here so far, though, you know, with the lane centering and all that. On the highway here, though, it's, you know, pretty quiet and, you know, pretty well behaved too. But yeah, it's just really great that, again, you do get that basic stuff. If you don't need to have this extra assistance, you know, you don't have to pay any extra for all the normal stuff. And having adaptive cruise as standard is very nice, because some of the luxury competitors still are going to charge you extra for that, amazingly. So it's great that we have all that here in this. Now, as far as my efficiency here during my 140 odd miles of driving here that I've done, I've been averaging the equivalent of about 2.82 miles per kilowatt hour. And so whenever we multiply that by the usable battery capacity here, that comes out to a real world range of about 302 miles. So not far off from the 315, and obviously, again, I was enjoying that power and getting on it a little bit. So that's most likely the cause of the, you know, a little bit of a drop over the quoted 315 miles. But again, over 300 miles of range on 22-inch wheels, this much performance, I think that's actually pretty good these days, and so I'm pretty impressed with that. Now, the last thing to really talk about here is pricing and how this compares to the competition. So these start at just under $75,000. This one, being a launch edition, is supposedly, according to the window sticker, costs $82,600. But then whenever I went on the configurator and built an identical vehicle, it now is showing it at just over $90,000. I'm not sure what the discrepancy is. Again, your deal will vary, and I have to say that there's a lot of lease deals on these right now, at least here in the spring of 2025. You know, again, depending on when you're watching this and where you're at, your deal will vary. But you know, this price tag is a little bit on the high side compared to some of the others, but don't let that put you off, because it may actually, you know, come out to be a pretty affordable vehicle, all things considered. Again, it's going to come down to a lot of variables, but just know that, you know, while 90 grand does sound high, again, they're really seeming like they're pretty aggressive with the incentives right now to, you know, move these. So, you know, just see what's out there and see, you know, what kind of deal you can get if you're interested. But as far as how this compares to the competition, now it is certainly cheaper than some of the others, like an AMG EQE from Mercedes or a Porsche Macan Electric, the 4S version that has similar power to this. Those are all going to be like 110,000 or more. So this is certainly undercutting those by, you know, 20 grand. So very impressive with that. But then when you compare it to some of the other competitors, I don't think this is the best value. So it comes down to exactly what you want and what you're looking for, but I think the best value for, again, about this same kind of power, doesn't have an air suspension, not as sporty, but it's the Genesis GV70 Electrified, or Electrified GV70. That's very nice. Might not have quite as much space as this, but does have a regular key fob and feels a little more normal since it's just an electric version of the gas GV70. So a little less, you know, futuristic and all that. Still, you know, beautiful looking car and all that. But those are like $76,000 loaded up with all the same kind of equipment that this has, and that means that it's, you know, basically, you know, that fully loaded thing is at the same price as what this starts at, almost. And so, you know, that is a really nice savings. And the Genesis, you know, is also very fast with its charging speed. It's an 800 volt architecture for that, and, you know, really top notch. Now, it doesn't have quite as high of range as this. That is the one thing, is most of the others aren't going to be able to crack 300. So keep that in mind. But aside from that, you know, this is, you know, again, a little bit more expensive than that Genesis. So that's the best deal in my opinion. Another very good one that undercuts this by a little bit is the Cadillac Lyriq. The Lyriq, I'd say, actually does have about the same amount of space as this. Very spacious. And the Lyriq feels a little more old school luxury as far as having lots of metal, having 4 full window switches, a key fob, and, you know, all the more traditional things. Just a lot of really nice materials. It's not minimalistic. I mean, you know, you have actual switches for your climate control. That does actually have CarPlay, because it was grandfathered in before GM decided to do their silly CarPlay ban on electric stuff. So Lyriq does have all the same smartphone connectivity, and Lyriq is just fantastic. I really enjoy the Lyriq a lot. And so Those are $78,000, again, comparably equipped, and that has 319 miles of range, so ever so slightly more than this. Now, it doesn't charge quite as fast. I believe that charges at like 190 kilowatts, so, you know, you have faster charging here in this for sure. It comes down to how much you plan on fast charging, but 190 is still, you know, very, very good, and honestly, it's still higher than some of these chargers put out in the real world, even if they're rated at 350 or whatever. So I wouldn't get hung up on the charge speed. That's still pretty good charge speed. And Lyric, again, saves you a good chunk of money, especially if it is truly 90 grand for one of these, and we are comparing MSRPs. Again, lease deals will maybe be different. Maybe the gap wouldn't be quite as large, but it's a huge savings for Lyric on paper as far as window stickers go. And so I'd say I'd easily rather have Lyric over this. And if you do want to have even more performance and still undercut this, Lyric V is starting to roll out here, and those fully loaded are $85,000. All the same luxury stuff, very impressive stereo and all that, and that has like 615 horsepower and has magnetic ride control dampers, really advanced, very impressive. And that's, you know, still $85,000 less than this at 90, again, on paper. And so, you know, those are the top ones. Now, there's also the Audi SQ6 e-tron that also does undercut this. That's about 84 and change. Does have a little bit less range, 275 miles of range in that one or so, but very similar performance. Also very impressive. Does have, you know, a really impressive stereo. Like I said, I think it's even slightly better than this one, ever so slightly, but, you know, very cool, you know, headrest kind of stereo system and all that. And is also just, you know, a really, really impressive vehicle that potentially can undercut this too. So, you know, again, this undercuts some of them, but, you know, there's a lot of other better values, I'd say. So again, always comes down to your deal, but, you know, on paper, it's hard to recommend this over the Genesis, the Cadillac, and even the Audi there. But again, I do still absolutely love the way this drives. I think it's one of the best driving ones. I love, you know, the super spacious feeling of this. There's a lot that it has going for it for sure, but, you know, again, still does have those bugs, still does have, you know, the weird, you know, lack of a key fob, some of the other weird quirks of this, electrical quirks and stuff. So Polestar, it's impressive so far with the Polestar 3. I'd, you know, maybe give them a little bit of time to work out some of the bugs possibly, and maybe add a key fob someday, although that might be wishful thinking. But, you know, again, I think just these days, as of right now, I think some of the competitors might be a little bit more compelling, but this is still a really great first attempt at an SUV here for Polestar, and looking forward to seeing how things evolve for them in the future. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the Polestar 3. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Polestar for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.